All right, we're live. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday. It's been a minute, but we're back and we're happy to be back. Today is a special day. We are going to be having a collaborative conversation with Word in Black, which is okay, Liz, you're gonna have to do it. I'm gonna introduce Liz Courquet-Lesaulnier.
Everyone was frozen except me for a long time.
What happened? Well,
I said everyone was frozen except me, so maybe it's me. It must be me that was off.
I don't know.
It's
I don't know.
the story of my life. What can I do?
It's always going to be something. Okay, so just in case we were all frozen, and let me just check, because you know what I try to do is I try to log on so I can see what other people are seeing. No, we're on.
It's probably me. It was probably me.
Okay, well, just in case. Well, anyway, I want to introduce Liz Courquet-Lesaulnier. Is that what you said? That's good. Okay, great. And she's going to explain exactly what Word in Black is, so I don't mess it up, and why this collaborative conversation, how it came about. Go ahead, Liz.
I'm so glad to be here with you all. Thank you, Dr. Joy. Thank you, Dr. Bahia. I love putting that doctor on your name, Bahia. Let me just say that. As Bahia said, I'm Liz Courquet-Lesaulnier. I am the managing director of Word in Black, which is a collaborative newsroom, a national collaborative newsroom that was founded in direct response to the murder of George Floyd by 10 leading Black publishers from across the nation. Everywhere from the Sacramento Observer and the Houston Defender, the Atlanta Voice, the Washington Informer, New York, Amsterdam News, places that have been telling the truth about our community for generations, okay, that are not, as Toni Morrison would say, subject to the white gaze. Our reporting is focused on amplifying solutions, the social justice movement's fights for racial equity around health, education, climate justice, finance, social justice, on and on and on. And we have this bold vision to be the most trusted news and information source for, by, and about Black folks. So, and a few months ago, we got into this conversation with the folks at Kellogg who have had this Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation project, I think since 2016. And, you know, it was interesting because when we think about racial healing, what I reflected on so often is that it is not framed through the lens of the healing of Black folks in the general discourse of the country, right? Obviously, right. White folks need to heal too, but centering the experience of Black folks is not always what happens. And so I called up Joe because he is an amazing journalist with a long track record of writing about all sorts of issues, managing newsrooms, all sorts of stuff. And I asked him if he would take on finding the examples of people from our community who are doing this work, because we need these models to encourage us, to show us what is possible and that things are happening, because this society will have you out here thinking, as you all know, right, it is all doom and gloom. There is nothing good happening for us, and we are just going to be trapped in this cycle, right, of whatever the heck the United States thinks is going on right now. So, you know, so shout out and thank you to the Kellogg Foundation for funding our reporting, first of all, and making all of this possible for us to tell these stories. So that's a little bit. And follow us on Facebook, subscribe to our newsletters, go read us. We're wordinblack.com. So
Word in Black, please check them out. Liz is a dear friend. She has been a co-conspirator out in these streets with us for some decades. So I am so thankful to have her here. I'm going to actually allow all of our panelists to introduce themselves. I will start with, how about
me?
We know who you are. We know who you are. I mean, they're on your Facebook page watching this, Dr. Joy. But
I know. I just thought maybe I'm thinking maybe I should say something.
Let them know who you are.
Wait. I know Liz too. Okay. And first of all, I'd like to welcome everyone that is going to be listening in to this conversation. It's always exciting when we have, you know, people that we know are doing the work and doing incredible work in the community, and we have those folks here. And it looks like I don't know if Ashanti changed his picture. All right, taking off the mask. Okay. So I'm just really excited to hear from everyone. We certainly need this right now more than ever. So If everyone can now introduce themselves. I'm Dr. Joy.
I'm going to just call on people so that we don't overtalk each other. How about you, Mr. Joe Williams?
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Williams. I'm the journalist who was working with Liz for Word in Black on the racial transformation and healing project. And I did a bunch of stories, and I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you. All right, Mr. Patrick Shaw.
You're muted.
Muted.
Patrick. And in my mind, I was like, I need to unmute, but for some reason my hands didn't follow. So, kind of distracted, trying to multitask. However, so my name is Patrick Shaw. I am the founder, CEO of For Fathers. And I started that this nonprofit organization in order to really address the disparities that we're experiencing in our country, specifically in the Black community with fathers. We want to make sure that fathers are being heard, that we're advocating for fathers, the rightful place in parenting. Oftentimes when you hear single parent, do you even consider father as an option? And so we want to change that narrative in order to be able to, again, affect the community in a positive light, understanding all of the statistics that advocate why fathers are important. 75% of children that go to the penitentiary often come from fatherless homes. And so there is a direct correlation with that. So that's what For Fathers is all about. We're not exclusive to working with fathers, but that's the main priority. We want to get the men involved as well. We want to target young boys as well, but fathers, Black fathers specifically, is our goal.
Thank you. We'll go to Ashanti Branch.
Hello, I'm Ashanti Branch. I'm the founder of Ever Forward, Siempre Adelante. Ever Forward started in 2004 when I was a first-year teacher. And I saw some really smart young men failing my classes. And I was like, you can't fail my class. Like, it's just not, I did not leave an engineering career to become a teacher to be broke and a failure. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, either you're going to figure this thing math out or I'm leaving. I know. So, because I was not going to sit around and watch that happening. And it was a space for young men to come together and talk about what they were going through in healthy ways. Because what we were definitely seeing is it was spilling out in unhealthy ways. And that's how the Ever Forward Club started. And I'm so glad to be here. Glad to be in this space.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're happy to have you here. And Mr. Darrell Wade.
Hello, everyone. I'm Darrell Wade. I'm the founder, director of Black Men's Wellness. We're a community-based health initiative that was launched in 2019 to address primary health concerns of Black and African-American males, especially high blood pressure and heart disease. So Black men, as we know, are higher risk for high blood pressure, heart disease, and also stroke. And so we launched that to provide wellness tools, introductory wellness tools to Black men and Portland's Black community at large. And the way we do that is we provide free workshops around nutrition, mental health and wellness, access to outdoor space, and fitness to our community. We also do an annual wellness week in celebration of the Juneteenth holiday that correlates with Juneteenth for Black households. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Bahia.
And we have Rahkii Holman that just joined us. We are introducing ourselves and what we do.
Yes. So good to be with y'all. Thank you for the invite. Good to see my people. So my name is Rahkii. Out there in the world, they call me hip. Either one works. And I'm originally from Boston too, by the way. So if I'm saying words like stot and fa and all that, just, ask me to say it again and I'll try to hit my R's. Yeah, so I'm wearing a few hats. My kind of daytime gig is with an organization called Community Works, and we work with folks returning home from the jails and prisons throughout the Bay Area. So we service Alameda County, which is Oakland, Berkeley, um, San Francisco County, Contra Costa County, and Solano County. And we do this reentry work through the lens of restorative justice. It's something that I implemented actually at this organization, the Community Works. I've been there for 9 years. And to kind of sum it up in terms of what we do, that's different than your traditional reentry is, a lot of reentry is, here are these resources, do as I say, go here, you'll be all right. It's more relational. Restorative justice is based on relationship and accountability and all that. So I transformed the restorative justice program there. And I also implemented a guaranteed income program for returning citizens. So I was able to land this incredible grant, $600K. And we were able to provide guaranteed income for returning citizens and children of returning citizens, right? So they receive $1,000 a month for 12 months, and then $500 to kind of taper off, so they don't have sticker shock when it's time for the program to end. So they get $500 for 6 months, basically $15K over the course of a year and a half, no strings attached, Black and brown specifically, formerly incarcerated people. And this is also a I call it restorative economics. So that's the approach. And that's the work that I do with Community Works. Then my own business, which I'm just rushing in from right now, why I'm late, is Atunse Justice League. Atunse is the Yoruban word for restoration. So get it, Restorative Justice League, right? And we train folks in restorative justice. We hold restorative justice circles. We hold, I have a curriculum where I use hip hop and restorative justice to work with particularly young men to address violence and the male role belief system. And, there's even a module where I use this song that I did with one of Joy's speeches, and I put it to music. So it's a way to introduce them to, her work in a way that, relates, because it's over this hip hop music, right? We've had incredible conversations. Every conversation that we have with that module is always incredible. I wish people could be a fly on the wall to witness that. But yeah, I'm just rushing over here now from doing a training for the Bay Area Community Service, which is an organization that's been around for 70 years. So that's what it is.
Well, we're happy to have you here. We're happy to have everybody here. And as the folks who are watching can see, that all of the people who are here are passionately compassionate for our community. And we are doing what we can in our lane, as my mom likes to say, to promote healing and equity, right? Ultimately, the ultimate justice, right? So the question that when I was speaking with Liz about kind of part of what they were doing in collaboration with Kellogg was to explore, what does it really mean to see racial healing in action? What does it mean to heal in real time? And so I was thinking about a couple of questions specifically that get to that in terms of framing where people come from. I'm gonna start with Dr. Joy. Okay, so if we start to think about, when you think about your work, and someone who is studying the work, someone who is immersed in using your model, someone who is working to create healthier family characteristics, right? Trying to get rid of some of those maladaptive behaviors that have been kind of transmuted onto different generations. When you think of healing in real time, what does that look like for an individual trying to navigate this racist terrain and heal themselves and their families?
Okay, that's a really big question, but I was just really kind of thinking about a recent experience I had. I actually was in Saratoga, New York yesterday to speak with the Conference of Community Health Centers that were doing their annual conference, and I was a keynote. 500 people. When I asked in the audience, how many of you, now these are community health organizations, centers all over the state of New York. And I asked them, how many of you out there are familiar with my work? You know, whenever I begin to present, everybody knows that's my number one question, because it really helps me understand how to proceed. And I don't know, maybe 10 hands. It's pretty diverse in terms of who was in the audience. With, I would say, a majority of the folks were white, but there was probably something like 40, 60. So, and the others were people of color, Asian, Black, Latinx, Indigenous, you know, so it was really mixed, but only a handful of people knew about my work, which means that I had to change lanes. Contrast that, contrast that. Now, these are the people serving. I'm walking down the street in Saratoga, New York, 1 block away from where Solomon, the brother that 12 years a slave was captured, right? Like a block away. Extremely white, with people with bumper stickers talking about why waste our money with global warming, you know, false election. I mean, it was crazy, right? I was like having an out of body, but it's very quaint, right? Very nice little shops. This Black man, one of the few, is walking down the street. I'm walking towards him. He turns around and he looks at me and he goes, "You're not from here." He looked at me and said, "You're not from here. You are beautiful. And there are so few of us, I never pass by someone Black and not acknowledge them." He said, you know, because, you know, and then he started to tell me started to talk to me about the history, right? And his history, the history of Black folks, the fruit of Islam. I mean, he's just started to talk to me. And I said, "I bet you're familiar with my work." And he says, "What is that?" I said, "It's about post-traumatic slaves." And before I could finish, he was like, no, he's on the phone. We're having this moment. And the way I relate my work to healing in real time, we were having this 30 minutes later, he and I are sitting there, we're talking. He was familiar with the community health organization. He was talking about his son, and he was talking about how grateful he was that the years before it had put him on the right path, and having read my work, and if I needed support, if I needed protection, if I needed anything, he'd be there for me. And I mean, literally, we are texting back and forth. Healing in real time for me, in terms of helping people navigate, is legitimizing our space. It's reading the reality in a way that people can grasp it and go, okay, and we're going to be okay, right? Because we've always been able to be okay and to manage, but we need to, in my work, we need to center people in the normalcy of who we are. And in that moment, we both experienced healing in real time.
I love that. I noticed that we have Gary Scott has joined us. Hello, Mr. Scott. Are you willing to introduce yourself before we continue?
Joy, that's Malachi, by the way.
Oh, Malachi. Mom, you're muted. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah,
Mom.
thank you so much.
Joy, you're muted. She was muted. Mom, you're muted the whole time. You're just
sorry.
Saying.
This is Malachi. Malachi works with Rahkii or HIP, and I've known him for a long time. And this is an incredible brother here, an incredible brother. I have a great deal of respect for my own reasons and for his own reasons. But what we were doing, Malachi, because Malachi, I don't know, was he in group with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were both, you know, just coming from this circle, from this group, and everyone has introduced themselves. So if you could. We know about the organization. Just introduce yourself, who you are, and the work that you specifically do.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
So I was trying to come pick me up something to eat real quick at this bomb Mexican spot over here. But yeah, my name is Malachi. Most people know me as with Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth. amongst other things. I specifically support families impacted by violence out here in Oakland, holding Black male healing spaces and doing restorative justice trainings and consultations. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mom, you just were speaking a lot about healing in real time, and I love that. That's a nice real life experience. Is there someone else who'd like to go and speak to what it looks like for them in their lane next? Okay, Patrick, how about you?
Yep. So once again, Patrick Shaw, Forefathers. One of the things that I've adapted to Forefathers, I took from my professional career, meaning that I do allergy training and diagnostic testing. One of the things, there's a study called Steinbach study, and what it did is that it examined a patient's triggers, because oftentimes what happens is when you go into a doctor, they oftentimes look at symptoms. And if we're only treating the symptoms, oftentimes we're probably going to get it wrong because there are so many symptoms that mimic others. It could be a variety of things. But if we get down to the foundation and the root cause of what's causing those symptoms, then we can better treat what's going on. And so Forefathers, we're trying to identify or help all its participants identify what is the root cause of why I may react in a violent way, why I may not be parenting the way that I would like to, why am I not a partner showing up in spaces the way that I would like to. Identify that first, and then be able to create a system or a practice or something that helps to be able to better engage with your partner, your child, your sibling, your significant other, however you want to identify that. And so I think as a part of healing, we need to be able to identify what those triggers are that are creating the symptoms that we see. And that way we can have a better opportunity to be able to address the problems and create the solution that is going to give us a better opportunity. Not treating the symptoms. People get upset about the N word. Well, let's get down to the bottom of why you're upset about the N word. That's a better starting point. Post-traumatic talks about a lot of systemic and historical trauma that we've dealt with. How do we be able to incorporate that in our everyday conversations, in our relationships?
Thank you, Patrick. So moving on, anyone else would like to speak about that? Okay, go Liz.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, me too. But whoever.
No, brother, I got you. You go first.
Right on. Thank you, fam. I really appreciate what the brother Patrick was saying about the symptoms. I think about that too when I look at it through the lens of restoration, restoring who we are. It's interesting. Malachi and I were in Ghana in July, and we were out there with a group of Black folks from all across the diaspora. Folks were from here, from the West Indies, and with some African folks with us out there. And I had the opportunity to interview 15 of the 38 folks that we were out there with and talk about how they had been impacted by the trip. And one of the things that sparked that conversation was how familiar actually, Joy, folks were with your work. We had conversations about, so it's like, okay, the sister is able to quantify and show how we got here, and has a whole theory that she proved, basically, called post-traumatic slave syndrome. So what is the solution to that? And what you essentially propose, which I absolutely agree with, is us getting back in touch with our roots and understanding the aspects. We got Black American down, right? We got that down. What aspects of our culture can we get back in touch with? And not to romanticize things either, because the motherland has its issues, and we have our issues, but there are things that we used to do it was really funny. Just the other day, I was talking with this sister from the Ivory Coast, and we were getting into this back and forth because someone that my hair braided for like 20 years. And one of her braiders had a problem with me not speaking when I came in. It was like, oh, you come in here like you own the place and da-da-da-da-da. In our culture, you speak when you come in and all this, right? And I was like, well, what we have is a culture clash. Because I was like, I'm still a Black dude, you know, that has to maneuver through the streets. You know what I'm saying? I'm coming in from the world with my ice grill on, you know what I mean? And I have to remember to snap out of this and realize that I'm coming into a different space. I was like, I know that much. And, you know, I'm a work in progress, right? But I thought it was a really good example of, yeah, you know, I mean, we actually saw that too when we were out there. You know, it wasn't my first time in West Africa. I've been to Senegal and Kenya and Cape Verde. I'm fourth generation Cape Verdean. So I'm familiar with it. But again, we've mastered Black American. What aspects of African can we restore to bring back some of our humanity?
Nice. Liz?
You know, I found myself just thinking about how working for the Black press, this is the first time in my entire life that I haven't been the only Black person in the newsroom, right? Which is in itself healing, for sure. And it's a really powerful thing. But one of the things that Joseph would file his stories and I'd be editing it. And, you know, you notice like the patterns and the trends and things. And one of them that I noticed is this emphasis on narrative and the stories that we tell and what stories get told about us, and how as a manager of Word in Black, I'm very deliberate in asset framing us and making it very clear that we are not the problem. And because when you engage with the news, it is generally somewhere in there that we are the problem. At the root of it, somewhere, somehow, that we are the problem. And I really appreciate it. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to work with Joe, actually, is because I know that he gets that we are not the problem, because as they say, not all skin folk are kinfolk, right? So there are Black folks who do not understand that, because we have been so indoctrinated into anti-Blackness and white supremacy to believe that we are the problem and to pathologize ourselves. And so when you said that, it really made me think about that this is why historically, when the first Black newspapers were founded, you know, before emancipation, they got destroyed because the society did not want that truth and the realities, all of the wonderful blossoming and beauty that happens in our communities. They didn't want those stories told. And so I think it's just narrative, the stories that we tell about each other and to each other are so crucial.
Well, it's happening even now. I mean, if we're talking about stories that are not being told, or why people are trying to suppress stories, it's happening now in real time, right? And that's one of the things that's most frustrating about the era that we live in, is that there's always been progress and there's always going to be backlash. And one of the things I noticed in writing the series of the stories is absolutely correct, that narrative is very important. The stories that we tell ourselves, the story we've told ourselves, and trying to break that cycle of conditioning. But there's a range of things that cause healing in real time, everything from an encounter in the street, you know, where somebody validates, you know, there's self-validation. And I've even found, like in walking down the street with another brother heading the other way, you know, just kind of, you know, the head nod, you know, hey, we're still here, you know, we're brothers in the street. Everything from there to just a simple act of breathing, you know, taking time to take a breath, learning history, reading history, talking about the past, talking about the present and the future. And there was one program in Spelman that I wrote about, where they were doing healing circles on a Black campus, right? So on a Black female campus, one of the most, what you would think would be one of the most welcoming, inclusive spaces ever, there was division. And that division happened because of the white supremacist overlay over everything. So they had racial healing circles, at Spelman College because you had a sister who was there who might have come from the hood. You had another sister who came from Beverly Hills, somebody else who came from overseas. So the diaspora required healing, and that healing was the need for the healing was because of the white supremacist overlay over all of this.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for that. And one of the things, Joe, when you talked about that, it made me think of the young people that we work with and the young men who often don't have a voice, who often are expected to follow all the rules of the world and of the streets and of communities and of societies and of masculinity, and then they don't get to speak, and their voice doesn't often get heard. So I'm gonna just bring a voice of one young man who we met in one of our workshops. So what we try and do to create that healing is that giving young men a space to talk about what we really feel and not be ashamed of having feelings. I think we've told in many societies, we tell young men, suck it up, don't show feelings. And then we tell them to just be all the tough and strong parts of themselves. And so we shut off half of their humanity, and then we wonder why they can act monstrous and why we have to lock them in cages, because society says, well, you don't operate like a regular human because you're not even empathetic about what you did to this thing, right? And I think oftentimes they have never been taught how to show empathy and to feel those feelings. And so here's a mask from a young man. I'm gonna just show you this word. I'm gonna show you 4 words. This is what he wrote on the front. This is a smart, happy, outgoing, and caring. That's what he shows the world about himself. That's the outside, the front of the mask, what we call it. And if I let you see what he wrote on the back of the mask, you would have to count them to realize that 18 times he wrote anger. And what we see over and over again is that expression of sucking it up all the time. And we have our young men walking around like landmines. And so somebody bumps into them, steps on their foot, looks at their partner, cuts them off on the freeway, and they have now exploded because no one knew they had hit the button. And the button had been just waiting because they had been so full. And I think if we don't begin giving all people, but definitely in our work with these young men, a space to talk about human feelings, emotions, then we're going to keep having to lock them up. We're going to either we're going to unlock those emotions or we're going to lock them up, because society's going to say, oh, you know what? You're not safe. You're not safe. We can't have you out here with the rest of us. And we would blame them because society has made them act in these ways that doesn't let them feel. So that's how we're trying to do it in our work.
This is like so amazing. There's so many layers to what we're talking about here. And I love the fact that I think people who are watching and listening can see where we're coming from, right? There's a theme that's repeating. One of the things that I was thinking about was there's a dear friend of mine who is running a human services organization here in Portland. And I met her when I was a youth. I remember, I was kind of Afrocentric activist in the 90s. And so I remember I was very quick to tell someone they were a victim of the slave mentality. But anyway, she was talking about good hair. And I remember her talking about, no, if your hair is nappy, it's bad. That's just Bahia. It doesn't matter who you are. That's just what it is, and they were always kind of laughing at me like, okay, woke girl. But it was before the word woke was there. It was like, eye roll. And years, went by. We both went into social work. We did all these different things. And she called me one day. She wanted me to be a thought partner in a conference for Black girls, celebrating their beauty and all these different things. And I had totally forgot about those exchanges when we were young. But I remember she spoke to the girls and she said, I had people who loved me and cultivated me and helped me figure out how to love myself. And here she had this, 500 girls in this conference that she was doing. And I think about, it's a lifelong process for all of us and a lifelong commitment. So it's not something that we get to, we've healed in this way. I'm sure, Ashanti, once you work with those boys who have that internalized anger, you're going to go onto the boys who want to learn, who want to express themselves artistically. You're going to move on to there's so many layers to this. It's not going to stop. And so for me, and seeing how that she's running all programs and influencing how social workers interact with little, Black boys and girls, those conversations cultivate healing over time. Her awareness and her understanding about why that would be an injury to tell someone their hair was bad because it was kinky or nappy, whatever. She didn't see it at the time. She thought it was fact. And she wasn't even attached to it. But later on, she's like, oh, that's injury and that's not who we are. And literally has a platform to impact so many children in social welfare and child welfare. It's ridiculous. Like, who would have known that would have happened from those little conversations? And so I think that when I see healing in real time, it's in our everyday having integrity in those interactions with people who you are watching you and who may appreciate more of what you say than what you think. And so for me, it just means every day making sure those interactions, especially with other Black people, that we are beaming love and light to them, even when we're disappointed in what we're seeing in terms of their words and their actions. Yeah.
I want to hear from Darrell, and then I wanted to respond to you, Bahia, and something you said there.
Darrell, his name is Darrell.
Oh, Darrell, I'm sorry,
Darrell. Oh man, thank you. So much was said. I feel a little intimidated. Shoot, I think right now. So just going back, the question is, what does it look like for us to see healing in real time? So when I first approached Bahia years ago with the idea of Black men's wellness, we talked about how many people we knew that passed away, just over the course of a year from preventable ailments. And they were all Black men. They were all younger than the age of 50. And I myself, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. So for me, I was looking for resources myself, culturally specific resources to address my own health and wellness issues. And I couldn't find any. And she was like, yeah, I don't know of any either. And I said, what do you think about this idea? And she's like, it's brilliant. You should do it. And we caught up a few weeks later as we're collaborating on some things. And she said, yeah, I didn't know if anyone was doing it. And I was like, well, now there's tons of Black wellness resources that are popping up. So, and that's great. So I think in that way, what we're seeing is a renaissance in the space of Black wellness. I think when we look back on history, you'll see it similar to a Harlem Renaissance, where there's a renaissance of folks leading, whether it's yoga retreats, or there's Black Men Heal on the East Coast, or whether it's Black Men Build in St. Louis, or whether there's Black Girl Rides and they do bike rides. I think you're seeing a ton of that. And that's, to me, what healing looks like in real time. I started doing this on a case-by-case basis. So I literally started getting just my friends out on hikes. And we would have conversations and we would process through our traumas, or we would take walks. And one of them is the chef, the guy who leads our nutrition workshops. And if you're familiar with Portland, you've ever been to Portland, you know that Portland's very green and you're not far from a decent hike, no matter what neighborhood you live in. And so we went on a hike. It was in the city, but you can get lost on those hikes. Portland is a city that's built in a forest on a mountain. And we got not even a quarter mile into this hike. And this guy, born and raised in Northeast Portland, he had never been on this trail, and he just started freaking out. And he's like, oh my God. He was like, bro, you got me out here with these white people. They unpredictable, bro. He around. I was like, John, bro, I was like, I can see Starbucks from here, bro. We're not that. And at the time he was struggling with obesity. And over the course of a year, as we began to work together and hold each other accountable, he lost 100 pounds over the course of a year. And he hit me with a text one Saturday. He said, bro, you trying to get out on the hike? And I said, yeah, man, you want to hit this? And I just named some hikes that were near the city. And he was like, no, I'm trying to get lost. And I said, oh. So he went from trauma, because the woods weren't always safe for us Black folks, as we know. Horror movies tell us that, and history tells us that. So he went from that to we literally did part of the Pacific Crest Trail, which is way out. So he went from addressing that trauma of not even wanting to do a trail that literally we could walk to Starbucks afterwards, to driving way out in the Columbia Gorge, and we're hiking, and from that he found out that he loved birding, and that he loved he found all these things as he began to reconnect with nature, and his blood pressure lowered. He got off one of his blood pressure meds. I just started to see him heal, and we both began to heal in real time. And so that is something that I think is what healing in real time looks like in our community is things like that. And just accessing that space that we normally wouldn't access because we're told that space isn't for us.
I think also that's that natural Negro fear. I had my son in a car when he was like 4 years old, and we just turned left, and it was suddenly no, and he was like, I feel like we're gonna get lost. He was like, are we gonna run out of gas? I was like, why are you panicking? He never had no reason to be afraid of where we were going, but I think that was that epigenetic fear of this is not where we're supposed to be. So yeah, I do think addressing that, and I think one of the things that I was going to ask you to talk about the story of the guy who helped lose 100 pounds, because that was a loving friendship that enabled him to encourage him and for him to trust him to try something new. And I think that we have these extremes, right? Where we have people who are like, you better get it together, blah, blah, blah. You need to get it together. And you have the folks who just stare and make judgments. But we don't have the balance of I'm your friend and I'm not just going to tell you, I'm going to walk with you. And Mom, I know you were going to respond. And I think that speaks to kind of.
No, I want to, and I see that Malachi, and I know Malachi, I didn't know if you were prepared to respond to that. But if you have something that you'd like to say, I'd certainly like to offer the space for you to do that.
Thank you, Joy. Can everybody hear me? Just want to be sure. It's interesting that y'all asked this question. It definitely made me reflect. I've been engaged in hypnosis and the Black male circle for a number of years now, and I ultimately didn't know necessarily what it was going to grow into. But real time, like with real time healing, is that we used to meet at Lake Merritt during the pandemic out in open space. Where it's safe to meet at what the scientists were saying, like it's okay to be outside. And in that visibility was promoting healing of itself, because Black men and women used to walk by our circle, where it's like hundreds of people driving past, a lot of people walking past, and get interested in joining. And so since the pandemic till now, our Black male healing circle has expanded and grown. There's so many different people that I'm just meeting, and we're starting to do things visibly outside in front of the office. People inquiring like, "What is this? What are you doing?" And they're coming in and they're seeing deep conversations happening where they probably wasn't necessarily expecting it. And so our circle is growing, and with that comes we had circles where somebody just lost their loved one and they want revenge. We were able to hold that and talk them down. We had circles where people just recently lost a loved one and I know hip knows this, and we were able to support that person. We have formerly, the beautiful thing about the circle is we have formerly incarcerated people, entrepreneurs, different generations, right? And we're building a camaraderie that is lasting. We have people still showing up, people going out into nature with us, people going to the beach with us, people having barbecue with us, people having these like crazy group chats, Facebook group chats, because we have built this bond. We're able to like crack jokes with each other. So we seeing it happen in real time. And these same brothers I reach out to when it's a young brother coming home from juvenile hall, and we have a circle for that young brother, and that young brother can hear the stories of people who had life sentences, like myself. People who engaged in the criminal justice system like myself, and talk about our own transformation, and we support that person on. And so what I'm seeing is, at least when it comes to my life, being engaging in the schools, in the criminal justice system, and in like community restorative justice, I'm seeing healing take place in real time. And I'm also seeing the challenges as well. And perhaps we'll get there as well. But that's a little bit I got to share. It's grassroots. It's from the heart. It's in the moment. It's every time that I step outside. Definitely every time that I step in partnership with HIP, etc.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, it's so wonderful and it's so necessary. One of the things that Bahia and I have been talking about is, hopefully trying to find groups of people to lean in to these kinds of conversations that don't have access to anything like this. We're having this conversation about our lives, how we are moving through the world. And you have folks that I want to, just to point out recently, as recently as today, I met with some school police officers around an incident that occurred. And I had to go down to the office, the police office where all of these, and these are all Black men, right? So I walk in and a situation has happened, an assault has happened involving a young person at the high school. And one of the things that happened was, there was a case and they were reporting on it. And their response was, about this student that did this thing. I'm sure that, they're going to eventually, get what they deserve, something to that effect. And I'm going, and then they asked me something about civil litigation. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, are you looking for a villain? Because if we're looking for a villain, we got to go way past this kid that did this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I've never seen this kid, actually. I've never seen this kid. I said, but I can tell you by the violence and the behavior that there's harm that's been done to that kid. And I would be willing, I said, so this is not about money, and it's not even about trying to find a villain. This is about healing. This is about trying to figure out, going back to that root cause that Patrick talked about, to say what is going on inside of you, what has been lost, what has been taken, what has been raped from you, that you have this anger that you write 18 times on the other side. And at this point, because the whole office kind of stopped, and was standing there. I said, that's not what this is about. I said, everything I do is about healing, embracing, growing, thriving, creating a trajectory of grace. And I realized, as and what I was getting was nods. They were nodding. They eyes kind of changed because they were in that posture. Right. And when I reminded them, and that's part of what Bahia talks about, is reminding them of everyone's nobility. It's in there. Right. And so I wouldn't allow myself to get sucked into, we're going to find the bad guy or get that bad guy, because I know that we got to go back generations and you're going to run into a system and a structure. So, I just wanted to put that out there in terms of that moment when I've made them remember. I could see them remember. I could see the light come back to them before I left the room.
Patrick has something to offer. Go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Joy, definitely that story resonates with me. And one of the other things that I thought about when it comes to healing is I'm just looking at your passion for our people, your passion for getting the knowledge and the resources out there. And I thought about how that creates the compassion. Once a person is healed, you're able to have compassion to where you didn't just look at that situation and say they're a criminal, that, I can't, understand why this person did that, but you took it and said you feel bad for everybody that's involved because of the fact that, one, that there is trauma for the person that committed the file, and that there is something deeper than what they did themselves, but also, too, there's an impact that comes along with that. And the impact to our community has been not being able to heal from the past trauma that has been placed on us. And so therefore we turn around and we hurt someone else. Or if we see someone dealing with something, we believe ourselves that they deserve what they're dealing with, that they deserve that, whatever punishment it is. And the reality of it is that when you do become healed, you can now have the compassion and the empathy to be able to say, even if you committed a foul to me, I don't necessarily want to hurt you. I want to help you. This is a real story. Bahia and I were shopping one time, and she lost her wallet, and a guy actually found the wallet. We were looking around. We went into a store. They identified, oh yeah, we saw this suspicious looking black dude. We both, even though we were annoyed that she lost her wallet, we both stopped and was like, a suspicious looking black dude. So we became defensive of the guy, even though he committed the foul. And so now when I found the guy that was still in the shopping plaza. He had shopping bags full of clothes, still had the wallet. And I literally went up to the guy, took the wallet back, and he, thought about trying to engage, but, he rethought that really quick. But we thought about calling the police. But again, from a compassionate position, we were just like, you know what, just bounce. We didn't even want to call the police because the stuff that he stolen can be replaced. But if the police came, rightfully so, even if they came, we didn't want to risk the chance of him being potentially killed or being locked up for longer than what's necessarily for the foul that he committed. So to me, that's where the healing, is huge, and it plays a huge role in our community in general.
Absolutely. I just want to follow up and say it's funny because Malachi and I just came from this training on restorative training, these folks on restorative justice, and we were trying to get them, most of them were service providers. We were trying to get them to understand how the restorative practice can be used in real time, and de-escalation on the street, which is necessary for us. It's a survival, really, at this point. That's it. We don't have, we have, there are other ways that we can heal and get through these situations, and doing it in real time like that is what it takes. You know what I'm saying? But the other thing though that I was emphasizing was the truth of the matter is though, you have to stay in practice. That's the other thing. You have to stay in practice because it is a practice.
No doubt.
Dr. Joy, I want to appreciate you for that story about the officers on that campus. As a former teacher for 10 years and administrator for 3, I think, unfortunately, with a lot of educators, and there's only a few Black men educator in schools, and you become in these roles where they want to push you out of the classroom into administration, and then you become a disciplinarian. And I think that oftentimes the education piece gets missed, and our teaching profession is 75% white women. And so our boys who sometimes have a hard time identifying with these adults who are telling them all these words, they get themselves in trouble. And I think if you don't have an empathetic person in front of that room who's holding space for 25, 30 different personalities at the same time, we end up with these young men, not when they say this, school to prison pipeline, I try and help them say, slow it down a little bit, because it's first school to the office pipeline, it's school to detention, then it's it's the detention to suspension, it's suspension to hanging out in the streets. It's a pipeline. So we miss all these other things that happen along the way. So we think that people are just grabbing kids out of school and putting them into jail, and there's some of that happening too, but there's a process that's happening. It's a pipeline that's happening. They're tired of going and not being seen, they're not being heard, not being understood, so they stop showing up, and then they're hanging out where they hang out, and then something happens. Like they're tired of getting kicked to the office because every time they open up their mouth and they're loud and a lot of energy, they're always getting called doing too much, and now they're in the office so all the layers that happen along the way. And I remember just one young man who came to my office. I was the vice principal, got a referral, threw a chair, hit the door. The teacher's afraid of him now. In 5 minutes, the teacher is now terribly afraid of this kid. Now, well, tell me about the chair. What happened? I mean, we started in, like, she sat me next to that guy. We had an agreement. The teacher broke the agreement that he wasn't going to sit her next to that guy, right? Now, the teacher may have forgotten, and he can't snitch that the guy is calling him names in the middle of class. He had already had a talk with the teacher. There was an agreement that you're not going to sit me next to him because he picks on me. And now I'm in danger. Now I got this kid sitting right behind me, next to me, on the side of me, picking on me. The only way I can get some attention is to let some aggression out. But now I get the teacher saying, I can't have him in my class anymore. He's a danger, a threat. And it wasn't even about you. It never was about you in the first place. It was about him trying to protect his own well-being in that space. And I think oftentimes our kids are in school, 7, 8 hours a day. It's a third of their day. They're in this place. And if you're not seen, heard, understood, you may stop going. And so thank you.
It becomes a prison. I wanted to say, and I know we only have a few minutes left, but I want to say, we'll go over because I want to make certain people have their final statements. But I wanted to just say that, there was a circumstance that happened actually in Portland where we created an opportunity for kids that don't ever get wins, 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 to give them wins. So even if the win meant that last year you kicked people 3 times, this year you only kicked them once, that's a win. We're going to find a win for you, right? So there's one little boy who, had really, he had struggled, but he really had improved a great deal. And in the program, the kids vote on who gets the win, who gets the award. So this one kid got the award who, probably never received an award in his life. He was really so excited. So his teacher who worked for our program called the mom, left, yeah, I'd love to talk to you about, your son. No answer. 3 times the teacher called, but each time the kid came back to the class, he was more and more distant from her, more and more closed. And finally, he says, I've been trying to reach, because he was going to get the award. She was calling to tell him whether he's going to get the award. He said, well, every time you call my house, she beat me. She beat me and said, why you got to school calling me? I'm not talking to these people. Why you got to school calling me? She beat him every single time.
Wow.
Now I'm bringing that up because, of course, the person who was calling was devastated. We had to do some repair because that was the last thing that she wanted to do. She wanted to celebrate this child and have this mother finally get some good news. Okay, so we tell mom. Mom's response, well, somebody should have said something to me. It was no ownership. And when I said, if you want to find it, you got to follow it all the way back. And we realized that we need to work with mama,
right, in
order to work with him. And here he was, can you see the harm in a good intent, because those layers that we all keep identifying, this is why, again, we've got to start with the positive. Had she said he's going to get an award, right? And she's thinking, I'm going to surprise this mother when she finally calls back. So all of these things that we do, even with good intention, when you are dealing with folks that have been so fractured, because I don't know that mom, but you could tell she didn't even have the ability to have any level of vulnerability, not an ounce of it. And so this is something where, again, we have to be vigilant. We have to be practiced. Like Rahkii was saying, it's something that we've got to keep doing, and we have to be consistent, and we have to follow through on these things. And all of us in every silo that we're in here, we're all in these different silos doing the work, but we're all doing the same work, really. And that's the beauty of it. And so I'd like to give everybody an opportunity for, just maybe a minute of some final words, or if Bahia, you have something that you would
Well, I
like.
think Joe was going to say something.
Oh, excellent.
I just want to say this one thing connected to school. One of the things that we've done, I run an organization called the Black Parent Initiative here in Portland. And one of the things that we've done to help with that is we're working with parents to become advocates for their kids, right? And so part of what we do is we give them a letter that helps them set the tone. Advocacy in our community a lot of time looks like, you do something to my child, I'm gonna cuss you out, then I'm gonna get banned from the school, then I'm not gonna be able to participate in any decision making for him, then he's embarrassed, like all these things happen. So we set the tone. Hello, I'm so happy to meet you. My name is blah, blah, blah. I'm so happy my child is in your class. Here are some qualities about them that you should know. This is their favorite subject. This is the subject they find most challenging. This is how they'd like to be redirected or reminded when they're off task. This is how they would not like to be redirected or reminded if they're off task. Under no circumstance can SROs or any law enforcement have conversations with my child without me or my attorney present. And given the history of implicit bias, what is your system of checks and balances to mitigate any potential harm that your unconscious bias may cause in my child? I want to be a partner with you, give me volunteer opportunities, all these things that sets the tone. We CC it to the principal with our logo on it. So if this teacher humiliates this child, the parent already set the foundation for their expectations, right? And so we can advocate on their behalf so that then they're not responding to the system that we already know is built to harm them, right? So I'm always thinking about, when we talk about healing in real time, sometimes the healing is preventing the harm in the first place. So if we can give people some tools to say, hey, I am now empowered to tell you what I need to see from you for my child, then I can come back if you don't honor that. And I have some people behind me, and I have some, the principal who's now aware. Sometimes we have to be strategic in the front end, right? To try to prevent those things from happening, so we don't have to respond and try to repair what has been the injury that has occurred. So I did want to turn it over to Joe and then everybody else.
Well, I'll say that two things occurred to me, Dr. Joe, when you were telling that story. The first is, it's a long legacy of harm, and what's taught is what's known. Somewhere along the line, that mom got the message that, when she was a little girl and her mom was dealing with her. And one of the reasons why they did that is because society told them that they had to protect themselves, right? You had to be a sharp, outstanding citizen. If you don't, I'm gonna beat you behind, because you're gonna be, I don't want them white people coming up in here, messing with my family. So you got to be tight, and if you're not tight, I'm gonna make you tight. But the other thing is that a lot of the commonalities that we've talked about today, and I wrote them down, is that the through line through all of this is that we have to be reminded of storytelling. It's about storytelling, the stories we tell ourselves. It's about visibility, being seen, right? It's also about safety, being in a safe space where you can show that vulnerability, where you can let your breath out and you can be yourself. It's about validation. It's about, hey, I see you, you see me, we're here, you're validating me as a human, and I'm getting the validation in return. And it's about community, right? Where we all are part of a whole. The community, Patrick, that you're talking about with your families, the community, Darrell, that you're talking about with your people trying to get well, Hype and Malachi, community there too, the healing circles, right? And something very magical or very mystical about the power of a circle. So all of those elements are part of healing in real time. All of them have to be consistently practiced. All of them have to be very intentional, right? We gotta mean to do this, because if we don't mean to do this, then it's just going to fall apart anyway. And all of it is to make ourselves seen and to make ourselves safe.
Who else? Who's next? That was really beautiful. Thank you.
I got a final word too. First, much love to everybody, not only here on the panel, but the folks watching on Facebook Live. Shout out to you all. I mean, we know that the world is a trip. It's crazy out here. And those of us who are doing what we can, please keep up the good fight, because we need you. And what you do counts and matters. I wanted to just read this quote to you all. This is something that we opened up our training with. Shout out to Malachi for evoking this quote. In the Babemba tribe of South Africa, when a person acts irresponsibly or unjustly, he's placed in the center of the village, alone and unfettered. All work ceases, and every man, woman, and child in the village gathers in a large circle around the accused individual. Then each person in the tribe speaks to the accused one at a time, each recalling the good things the person in the center of the circle has done in his lifetime. Every incident, every experience that can be recalled with any detail and accuracy is recounted. All its positive attributes, good deeds, strengths, and acts of kindness are recited carefully and at length. This tribal ceremony often lasts for several days. In the end, the tribal circle is broken, or joyous celebration takes place, and the person is symbolically and literally welcomed back into the tribe. That's what we need to be doing, y'all.
Right on.
Since it is Wellness Wednesday, I want to leave folks with my wellness recipe for this week. And my wellness recipe for this week, I call it Rose Red Relaxation Smoothie. So it's a beet-based smoothie. And one thing I learned is that we're all especially Americans, we're super magnesium deficient. And that's a big cause. That has a huge effect on our blood pressure and then our internal organs, especially Black folks. So I got my beets here. You get your guava nectar. Hopefully it's get it with no high fructose corn syrup, so no humex. Get you a banana and some frozen strawberries and throw them in the blender. So these are cooked beets. You can get them at any local grocery store. And it has a calming effect. It helps lower your blood pressure. And if you can't do that, please try belly breathing, where you inhale it through your nose, fill up your belly with air, and literally suck it in and empty it out through your mouth like you're sucking in your stomach. Right, try that. And when you breathe in, fill that belly up, exhale slowly. And you look at that brother. You can see how his shoulders dropped. You see how his shoulders just dropped. So when we talk about how we have a gut feeling, because we hold all our stress in our gut, practice that regularly, multiple times a day. And but also something that Dr. Joy was talking about with the mom. And we had a motherhood symposium during our Wellness Week. And we talked about disciplinary measures. And Bahia even really gave me some, as a parent, gave me some jewels on this. And I think one of the things that we've especially in our community is we've left behind is gentleness, gentle discipline. And similar to what my brother Rahkii was talking about, that sounds like a gentle discipline. And I thought about myself, one of the things I heard growing up from my mom is if I don't give it to you, then the street's gonna give it to you. Right? But then I thought about, and I was raising my nephew in that way. And then I said, well, if the world is not his safe space, and if home is not his safe space, then where is his safe space? And I had a friend who said, I'm gonna teach my kids, I'm gonna prepare them for the world with this tough parenting. And I said, the world is gonna be tough enough, especially on us Black folks. The world's gonna take care of that for you. So where can they go to heal and have their safe space? Where can they go to have respite? So I'm encouraging us as parents, create that safe space with your kid. Allow your home to be that safe space.
The things I got excited about during this call, Liz, she is talking about the journalism space and how our stories are coming from us. And that's one of the things that I believe that social media has allowed us to do, where we've been able to break those doors down and those barriers down to where you're hearing more of our stories from us and their positive stories with balance. And one of the things that resonates with me, just listening to everybody on the panels, is their compassion for what they're doing, their passion for what they're doing as well. But it also came from a need. It came from something that we've all experienced ourselves, or we know somebody that experienced it as well. But we understood how impactful it was for us to be able to heal in real time and continue to search for that healing as well. And so again, really excited for everyone on this panel, really excited that everybody is going to be able to make their mark in our community, in this world. And again, it's understanding the trauma and how it affects us. It just creates better opportunities for us to be able to grow and heal. Bahia teaches a model, impact and it versus intent. You can have all the best intentions in the world, but if you're not understanding the impact of what you're doing, then it may be completely ineffective and efficient if you don't understand that. So I would encourage everyone, if they can, Dr. Bahia, Dr. Joy, books out, take a look at it. It'll change your life. It'll really give you a different perspective of how you approach just some of the everyday life interaction, especially for us men, because our stories are being told by everyone else except for us. And so when we start to get better in those spaces, then we can start having a better conversation about what that looks like.
Absolutely. Just a second vote on Bahia's intent and impact. Absolutely incredible work.
Okay, Liz.
Can you see the thoughts marinating me over here? One, I was just thinking about one of the things that you say, Bahia, oftentimes that I love so much, is just about this thing of beaming love on our children and how essential that is. And really this space has been one of beaming love on each other as well. And I just want to say I thank you for that, each of you, for being here for this and for sharing. And I work in media, and I oftentimes am myself afraid to look at the news these days because it is so clear that our world is going through hardcore this process of disintegration, right? But we know that simultaneously, the globe, not just Black America, but the globe is crying out for something different. And so what is the integration? What is coming up? We have this crisis, but then what are the victories? And I found myself thinking through this conversation that part of the integration, that healing, is the healing of Black folks and how essential that is. And, when we talk about, people of African descent being the pupil of the eye, and how we enable folks to be able to see, like, this is what y'all are talking about right here. And our health and well-being, whether or not folks realize it, like the health of the world, if we are not healthy, the rest of the world cannot be healthy. Period. And so I really thank you. And also Renaissance of Black Wellness, whoever said that, I'm sorry, but that's about to be a headline on our site. So but yeah, I just, as a reporter, as journalists, we cannot report these stories without the hard work that y'all do every day. And I just want you to know that we see you, we are the people behind the scenes who get to talk about the work that you do. And so I see you and I thank you for that.
Thank you, sis.
Yeah, thank you, Liz, and thank you.
I get a direct quote for that Renaissance of
Darrell Wade, Black Men's Wellness. Make sure you got a little line underneath there.
Yeah, thank you, Darrell, for that smoothie too. I'm gonna try and go see if I can find those ingredients for tonight. Yeah, thank you, everyone. I think what I would like to just say as a closing, just to say, I'm glad to be here with you all. I'm glad to meet some of you the first time. Looking forward to continued connection in this work. I think as a practitioner of this work, I think I am oftentimes, I know that I'm very good at offering help and very bad at asking for it. And so I think finding spaces where you don't have to say a lot before men get to space that you're ready to talk about something deep, and if I need to let some tears go, that is nothing wrong with that. But I think I've lived my life so long where I'm not allowed to show them that it's sometimes you got to be careful that you can do that in a healthy way. So the quote that we use in our Million Mask movement, we have a big goal. We want to help 1 million people remember that there's more to me than people can see. And if I can remember carefully that there's more to me than people can see, then maybe I'll also remember that when I'm looking at others, that there's more to them than I could ever see by just looking at them. And so we invite this Million Mask movement as a gift to the world. We don't want people to need us to do it. We want to offer it as a gift to the world for people to just check in with their own mask. What mask are you wearing? And do you have a safe place? I know I got good masks. I change them in and out all the time, but I have a place to take them off. And I think some people don't have a place to take them off. So just reminding ourselves that we need a place sometimes to take those masks off. So thank you folks for being here tonight, and for all those listening. I invite you to participate in this movement. millionmask.org. It's free. It's an opportunity. It's anonymous, but it is a way to recognize that, oh yeah, I'm not alone. And so thank you everybody for being here tonight.
I just want to let you guys, Darrell has put his recipe. I want to say this to everyone. It's cooked beets, banana, frozen strawberries, and guava nectar with no high fructose corn syrup, right? Please try that this evening. But also I wanted the panel to know that I've been monitoring the chat on Facebook, and people are so happy, first of all, to see so much Black male leadership here. I love that we are outnumbered in this space today. It's rare when we're talking about healing and social service and outreach that you see this many amazing, gifted brothers. So thank you for showing up for us today. Please take some time when you go to Joy DeGruy. You got a couple of shout outs. Mr. Patrick, also Joe. These are jewels that people are taking in, and we've had at different points up to like 130 people actively online during this time, and these things get shared and reshared as a form of healing. And I'm hoping that you all will also network with one another and with us to create some more opportunities for our collaborative effort. Out here, we are all, lots of us in nonprofit space or education or social service. That's not the place to get rich. However, we can create some collaborative efforts that can be really transformational nationwide, globally. So I encourage us all to be thinking about those things all the time. Please go look at the comments and share these. Go to Dr. Joy's Joy DeGruy Publications Facebook page, and you can share this with other people you think might get something from this. We're back with Wellness Wednesday. We'll have these folks back at another time, more times. And if people are interested in learning more about all of the folks, their organizations and the work that they're doing here, please we'll put the names of the organizations in the chat on Facebook. And please, folks here, you also go on there and add little pieces in there. So
I think Malachi had one last thing.
Malachi, you have one last thing to say? You didn't do, okay, go ahead.
That's all good. I'll just make mine quick then. I'll try to sum it up. When I think about healing, I think about my path to a place of joy. And how can I get to that joy as soon as I can? And so when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling angry, when I'm feeling abandoned, when I'm feeling inadequate, how can I get back to that place of joy? And if I can reduce the time from when I'm feeling those things to getting to a place of joy, to me, that is healing. And that inquires a lot what Joe was talking about, feeling the safety, connection, community, etc. And so my joy I just want to leave with everybody is know your pathway to a place of joy. Joy is connected to healing. And I just leave it at that. Thank you.
Yes, and connected to joy too. Healing is connected to joy too. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you guys for participating. I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Appreciate y'all having us. One love, y'all.